I shouldn't drink about joking problems. Yeah, that's good. This is going to go well.
That's a great start.
This is going to go well.
Welcome to the edge of nowhere. Monster Lore Tour Podcast.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this 42nd episode of the Monster Lore Tour Paranormal Deep Dives from the Edge of Nowhere podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Carr, here along with my co-host and the Zan to my Jaina, Mr. Matt Ozero, a.k.a. the Moz. How we doing today, Moz?
Is that like American Idol? Like, wasn't it Sanjaya?
Zan and Jaina are the Wonder Twins from the Justice League.
Oh, the Wonder Twins.
And I used them for a specific reason.
Because Wonder Twins activate form of American Idol Sanjaya. No, okay. Do you remember Sanjaya, though?
No.
I
not an
don't
American
either.
Idol fan, honestly.
I'm not either, but Sanjaya made kind of a splash. But so did the Wonder Twins.
The reason I went with the Wonder Twins for the opener today is that one of them turns into forms of water and the other one can turn into whatever animal it likes. So I figured it would be fitting for the Animal Rain episode.
Ooh.
As it involves animals and water interchanging in unexpected ways. You see what I did there?
You did. You did.
Yeah. Now, if we only had a pet monkey.
Yeah.
Just don't name them Gleek. They named their pet monkey Gleek. It's my only complaint about the Wonder Twins.
Yeah. We should be doing the 42 because it's the 42nd episode.
Ooh, yeah, deep thought.
Yeah.
We can figure out how many roads a man must walk down, which is the question they came up with for the ultimate answer to life, the universe, and everything.
The mice?
The mice.
The mice came up with that.
Yeah.
All right.
The hyper-intelligent interdimensional mice.
Yeah.
Yeah. To all you Douglas Adams fans out there, welcome to episode 42.
And that concludes our episode. Wonder Twins.
I don't know if
American Idol and Douglas Adams.
Yeah.
I think we've covered everything, I think. Yeah. You can talk about the meat blobs in the side trail. Let's end.
On to the meat blobs.
On to the meat blobs.
We will be talking about animal rains today. Bio rains, maybe you can call them even. But first we got to do all our regular stuff here. You had a little bit of old business, I think, Moss?
Yeah, I talked about the clans. I didn't know if it was 7 clans of these kind of the first.
Oh, you're talking about the Yeti stuff.
Yeah, the Bonjekri. And there was the first clans kind of go back to the progenitors with these hybrids who kind of either made some kind of pact or mated with monkeys, and they were kind of half human, half ape hybrids.
Oh, yeah, it was like 8 humans and 8 apes or whatever.
Yeah, and in my notes I found 6. So if my notes are wrong, I can still have
tribes.
more. Yeah. So that was in my, if anyone knows more on that, let us know. I did get that from somewhere.
So it said basically 8 brothers, let's call them, just for lack of a better term, and only 6 clans or tribes built out of it. So a couple of them didn't really make it to
I think it was just maybe 6 clans. I think I wasn't sure if it was 7 clans or 8 clans. Okay. I think we're down to 6. If we keep doing this show, eventually there'll be no clans.
6 is a good number. It's a number of chaos. I like chaos.
There you go.
It kind of makes sense for those guys to be the number of chaos.
Yeah.
So there you go.
But there's more on these progenitors and these early packs coming up in future episodes. It seems to be a theme that I can't get away from. And what did go on between ancient man and animals, and what kind of agreements were made, and does it have anything to do with werewolves?
Yeah, once you get into the shaman stuff, there's all kinds of pacts being made between human and animal in all kinds of different ways, trading senses and trading forms and trading information and all these things.
It gets deeper, it gets weirder,
Yeah.
And the mice may be running the show.
Deeper and weirder. That's what we do here at Monster Lore Tour.
Exactly.
And one more thing before we really get started, if you can take one moment to hit those happy fun buttons on whatever platform you're on, like, subscribe, and share and all that. Really appreciate it. But now let's get into it. I'm a little excited for this one. It's a different sort of topic for us. It's based entirely on recorded documented events. So, not your typical ghosts and goblins kind of stuff that we do here. All this definitely really actually happened. All these events we're going to talk about today. Much of the time that is debatable, but not today. Straight facts. Straight, freaky, frightening, potentially full-on horrifying facts.
There you go.
And it is all about random creatures, or even bits and pieces thereof, falling from the sky like so many monster drops.
Wow.
Weird topic. Now, I have to say that when I started looking into this topic, I did wonder if there was going to be a real episode here, like proper amount of stuff to do a real episode. But then I discovered that animal rain happens far more often than I was aware of, which might be the freakiest thing about this episode, honestly, in my mind. Many of the stories we talk about today will be wholly explicable, in a way. A few will appear much more mysterious. But it is really the sheer amount of times that frogs, worms, fish, and even random hunks of bloody flesh have rained down from the sky onto unsuspecting bystanders that really kind of freaks me out. Imagine being out walking down the street, minding your own business, and suddenly a bunch of live frogs are smacking you in the top of the head out of nowhere. Like, what would you do if that happened to you, Moz?
I would take a page from Mulder and Scully, who opened an umbrella. Do you remember that episode? I forget what. I should always know the episode, but I don't in this case. So, but I remember Mulder opening an umbrella and frogs start hitting the umbrella. And, they're both, it's kind of a comedy moment.
So as a hermit living in a cave in the desert, do you often carry an umbrella, Moz?
Well, then
I'm willing to bet you won't have one.
Then when you pull out your Scully little gun and you would shoot those things right out of the sky.
There you go. This is Arizona. Shooting. We all got guns, right?
Yeah.
That's a very Arizona answer. What do you do if it starts raining frogs? You shoot them, of course.
Yeah. What would Yosemite Sam do?
He would shoot them.
Yes, that's what
before they even hit the ground, because he likes shooting up.
Yeah, he's shooting up anyway. He's so prepared for this.
Oh boy, but yeah. So it's when the sky gives you frogs, make frog legs, right?
Yeah,
that's how it all starts. But let's get into the recorded history of random animals falling from the sky throughout time and space, at least as it has been observed by humans on this place we call Earth. Are you ready, Moz?
I am ready.
Just to specify up front, I'm going to give you the wikinition. Huh? Is that a good word? Wikinition of what we mean by animal rain. That means a definition from Wikipedia. Wikinition.
Oh, yeah. I was still on ammunition. I was still thinking about bullets.
I'm just making up new words
ammunition.
Again.
So
it's like definition, but wikinition, because it's the definition from wiki. I'm just shortening it.
I got you.
Coining a phrase, Moz. Anywho, the wikinition of animal rain is: a rain of animals is a rare meteorological phenomenon in which flightless animals fall from the sky.
Dodo birds.
So we aren't talking about birds and bees here. We're talking frogs, we're talking fish, worms, sometimes just random chunks of bloody flesh. Isn't that fun? When you're dealing with the weather, you really just never know what you're going to get, Mus?
Yeah, especially like our guy up north, Lee Bourne.
Yeah, there you go. Flagstaff. Yeah, infamous. We are in our desert locale today, but it's getting hot, man. It's almost 100.
Oh.
We really got to finish this season switch and start getting back to the garage more.
Yeah.
But we do what we have to do here at Monster Lore Tour to make it happen. So I'm going to be sweating a little bit today. So the earliest records we have of animal rains go back to ancient Rome and a man known as Pliny the Elder. It's a great name.
Yeah.
He wrote of storms of fish and frogs raining down from the heavens like some kind of pre-Bible biblical plague. Apparently, it happened with enough frequency that he wrote about it multiple times. And that is actually what brought me here. I stumbled on a story about a rain of worms in China a while back, which is funny because it's the one story I'm going to debunk in this episode is the one that brought me to it. But it sparked my interest in the subject. It's like, really? Does this stuff really happen? Turns out this stuff happens way more often than I would have thought if I had thought about it before that point, which I hadn't. But case in point, let's have Moz read us a segment from an article from BBC News from Friday, the 20th of August, 2004. If you would, please, Moz.
So, British accent.
If you like.
And now for something completely different. Tonight on Face the Press, we examine things that tried to fly but probably should have given it a miss. Just getting into the voice.
Well, as Douglas Adams taught us,
Yeah.
the secret to flying is throwing yourself at the ground and missing.
Yeah.
These guys just forgot to miss. That's all they missed was missing.
No, they might have missed because a lot of them popped away.
Some of them
from
do
reports.
miss.
Yeah.
They just swirl around a bit like Arthur did.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
The latest in a series of bizarre British weather phenomena is a rain of fish. It may sound like the stuff of legend, but such events are increasingly well documented. On Wednesday, the village of Knighton in Powys was reported to have endured such a fishy deluge. Not a story easily believed, an odd sight for a biblical-style plague, one might think, perhaps to be followed by the waters of the nearby River Thames, running red with blood. But in fact, as the Met Office explains, such occurrences are not as uncommon as they may sound. Not only are they not quite the miraculous events that they seem, rains of fish and other even more surprising objects are reported with some frequency.
So that right there I find monstrous in itself, the fact that this is a regularly happening thing. A lot of the reports overlap with weather events. This is what supposedly explains these things,
right.
Is thunderstorms, tornadic activity, things like that could seemingly explain thousands of frogs falling from the sky. That's a very common one, the frogs. However, no one has ever witnessed, and this is a big sticking point for me, no one has ever witnessed the launch portion of the event to say for sure that that's what's happening.
But if you saw a tornado sucking up a pond, you really wouldn't see frogs going up and saying, "So long, thanks for all the fish."
You would see it sucking up. Nice. You would see it sucking up the ponds, though, and that would explain how the frogs got up there.
Yeah.
No, people have only ever seen the down. They've never seen the up for these events. And we'll get into that a lot more as we go.
Okay.
And some of these events are actually far more perplexing in nature. Some seem almost paranormal. And we'll get into those as well. So I'm going to run through this in chronological order, which is a bit different and more scattered than chronological order.
There you go.
But we're going to end up in the same place with all the right facts. Okay, so you ready? Modern reports of animal rain all seem to start with the same event. This is, jumping ahead to modern times with newspapers and things like that. In 1794, specific date undetermined, a group of soldiers embroiled in the death throes of the Reign of Terror in the pivotal end of the French Revolution all witnessed a rain of toads fall upon the village of Lalaine outside Lille, France. It was the beginning of the modern recording of such events, and the list seemed to grow more quickly as time went on, and the newspaper became a thing throughout the world. What seems to be the most common of animal rain, edging out toads and frogs, comes in the form of fish, like in the previous article from the BBC. This happens so often, we really don't have the time to cover all the recorded events, so we'll just focus on an event in Honduras called Lluvia de Peces. Here is a slice of an article from livescience.com about the happening. Every year for the past 100 years or so, the little city of Lloro, Honduras, has experienced some very strange weather. Typically occurring in May or June, Lluvia de Peces, or Rain of Fish, is an annual weather event in which hundreds of fish rain from the sky onto the city's streets in the wake of severe thunderstorms. Fish rain, or animal rain, as the phenomenon is commonly known, has been reported around the world for centuries, but scientific explanations for why the phenomenon occurs are few and far between.
Well, I mean, they say the thunderstorms. I mean, maybe it's Thor or Zeus.
It does.
I mean, that's what, the thunder shamans could also be responsible.
Yeah, and it does seem to kind of mix with the thunderstorm thing most often.
Severe thunder. Yeah.
Not tornadoes, mind you, but thunderstorms.
Well, they can spawn. That's the precursor.
Well, it can maybe mean some other things as well, but we'll get into that in the
Thor
theory section.
and Zeus, I believe I said that.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
But what they're talking about there with the lack of scientific theories is what I said about never seeing the up part of the equation. Even with the scientists knowing for years that this event happens every year in the same season in the same locale in Honduras, knowing that it only happens when it rains, it shouldn't be so complicated. And
why don't we have someone from our journalists there when it happens and we get some live feed? I mean, we don't seem to cover such things. If it's happening every year for 100 years,
that's what I mean. Shouldn't they have been able to find where the fish are coming up?
Or they should at least be, some, I don't know. Why don't scientists are like, oh, well, I'm busy that week. I mean, you have 100 years notice.
Right. Because they know about when it happens, the season where it happens, where it happens.
Oh, so it's about. They don't know that.
Well, it's May, June. Every year in May or June, in this one place, it rains fish when the thunderstorms come.
Yeah. Okay.
As far as like scientific research goes, that gives you kind of everything you need to go out and try to find, go survey put cameras on all the ponds in the area kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You would think that they would somehow be able to figure it out, but still no one has ever seen the fish go up.
Strap those little ankle monitors onto all the frogs so we can track them.
Oh, there you go. Put little nano chips on tracking chips in all the fish in Honduras and see which ones get thrown in the air.
Von Neumann toads. Yeah.
Oh, von Neumann fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could work, maybe.
I think we've crossed some wires in our metaphor there, but yeah. My point is, they don't know where these fish are coming from. But as weird as that is, it gets a lot weirder than that. So let's take a breath and move on here. I'm going to do one more example of the fish, just to show how pervasive a phenomenon it is through time and space. So far, we have one in Britain in 2004. Okay, so that's 20 years ago. 100-plus year running annual fish fall in Honduras. So, 100-plus year every year in that place. And this next event happened in Allahabad, India in 1836. So greatly separated in both time and space from those other ones.
I bet if it happened in Cancun, it'd be like, I'll go May, June, Cancun and wait.
Happens in Cancun, everybody just goes, fish fry.
But no one's like, I'm going to go to Honduras for 2 months and wait for the fish to fall from the sky.
Yeah, it's not the most attractive of locales, but I still kind of want to go.
Yeah.
But anywho, this was reported, this fall in India was reported in the London Times on the 19th of April, 1836. Fall of fish that had occurred in the neighborhood of Allahabad, India. It is said that the fish were of the chalwa species, about a span in length and a seer in weight. Whatever that means. They were dead, and get this, and dry. They were dead and dry.
If you overcook them, that'll happen.
Or they had been such a long time out of the water that we can't accept that they had been scooped out of a pond by a whirlwind, even though they were so definitely identified as a known local species.
Yeah. Freeze-dried, maybe, because they got high enough in the atmosphere.
So somebody identified them as a local... I'm kind of jumping in and out of this, but someone identified them as a local breed of fish, but they were dried.
Yeah.
They couldn't have just been sucked out of a pond.
No.
Like they were jerky, almost, like all dried out. So the article continues, or they were not fish at all. I incline myself to the acceptance that they were not fish, but slender, fish-shaped objects of the same substance as that which fell at Amherst. This is something we're going to get into later. It is said that whatever they were, they could not be eaten, that, quote, in the pan, they turned to blood.
Well, wait a second, though, here. So we have, even though it identifies as local species, maybe we have not deer, now we have not fish.
It is like a not fish, because it was enough like a fish that somebody was like, oh, that's like the chalwa fish. But it wasn't like a fish that just got pulled out of the pond. It was dead, dry husks of what looked like fish. And then you put them in a pan and they gooified. They just turned into like bloody goop.
So maybe it's more Aztec that has a Pocatl sun god that you have to sacrifice blood to.
There you go.
Yeah, we're moving away from Thor and Zeus for your mythos, folks.
Right, but here we do have our first twist, because what they call a rain of fish, supposedly explicable by happenings with the weather, upon further inspection seems far stranger than it first appeared, right? Mm-hmm. the interesting questions. If they were fish recently pulled from a pond, why are they dried out? And if they were fish, why did they seem so unfish-like?
Yeah, but this was, again, back in the, obviously the problem is 1836.
True. And, science wasn't really up to snuff yet, and reporting was
They had snuff, though.
Oh, yeah, they definitely had snuff. Reporting it's like a game of telephone. Every time somebody else hears the story, it changes. And it was really hard to follow up on anything.
Fish, not fish.
No internet yet. The communications were lacking.
Yeah.
But anywho, let's get into, he did reference what fell at Amherst in that article. So let's jump back to that, the substance that fell in Amherst that was mentioned. This next article will show us the stranger side of the things that fall from the sky. And seeing as you were the one that actually gave me the lead to this particular story and the road that it led to, which I do appreciate. You want to read this one for us, Moz?
Yeah, I think I found this in Lauren Coleman's Mysterious America, if I'm not mistaken, and I sent it onwards. So
I actually found it again in the Sacred Texts from Charles Fort, the Book of the Damned, I believe it was, that will be referenced in the show notes.
Yeah.
So this is actually kind of a common one for anyone who actually delves into the subject.
Nice. That upon the evening of August 13th, 1819, a light was seen in Amherst, a falling object, sound as if of an explosion. In the home of Professor Dewey, this light was reflected upon a wall of a room in which were several members of Professor Dewey's family. The next morning in Professor Dewey's front yard, in what is said to have been the only position from which the light that had been seen in the room the night before could have been reflected, was found a substance unlike anything before observed by anyone who saw it. It was a bowl-shaped object about 8 inches in diameter and 1 inch thick, bright buff-colored, and having upon it a fine nap. Upon removing this covering, a buff-colored, pulpy substance of the consistency of soft soap was found, of an offensive, suffocating smell. A few minutes of exposure to the air changed the buff color to a livid color, resembling venous blood. It absorbed moisture quickly from the air and liquefied. From some of the chemic reactions, see the journal.
Weird stuff there. It's almost like the movie The Blob coming true in a way, but this is not the only occurrence of strange gelatinous blobs falling from the sky in Amherst, Massachusetts area.
Yeah, because the blob
is not a solo event.
The Blob was Downingtown, Pennsylvania, and Steve McQueen had to deal with that in a diner. Sorry.
But this following story, which I will read for you, is from 1834 and reported in the American Journal of Science. Professor Edward Hitchcock went to live in Amherst. He says that years later, another object, like the one said to have fallen in 1819, which is one we just talked about, had been found at nearly the same place. Professor Hitchcock was invited by Professor Graves to examine it. Exactly like the first one, corresponded in size and color and consistency. The chemic reactions were the same. Professor Hitchcock recognized it in a moment. It was a gelatinous fungus. He did not satisfy himself as to just the exact species it belonged to, but he predicted that similar fungi might spring up within 24 hours. Before evening, 2 others sprang up. Or we've arrived at one of the oldest of the exclusionists' conventions, or Nostoc.
What I remember from this, though, is they weren't sure if it had fallen from the sky or just appeared on the ground, right? Is that about right? I'm going on memory.
No, it definitely, there was a boom in the sky.
Oh, right. It was a flash, a boom.
Yeah.
A flash, a boom, and then they look out and they got these strange balls, yes.
And for an aside here, I was taking an aside there anyway. For those who don't know, because I didn't know what it was, Nostoc, Nostoc, what they just said there, is a type of blue-green algae that group together into blobby gelatinous masses. They typically range in size from microscopic to as big as a walnut. So they're saying that this thing might have been Nostoc, but note they aren't known to come in forms bigger than a walnut. And this thing was much bigger than a walnut. Like much bigger. Okay, so continuing with that article. We shall have many data of gelatinous substance said to have fallen from the sky. Almost always, the exclusionists argue that it was only nostoc, an algae, or in some respects, a fungus growth. The rival convention is spawn of frogs or of fishes. So they're talking like frog eggs, fish eggs kind of stuff. Yep. These two conventions have made a strong combination. In instances where testimony was not convincing that gelatinous matter had been seen to fall, it was said that the gelatinous substance was nostoc and had been upon the ground in the first place. When the testimony was too good that it had fallen, it was said to be spawn that had been carried from one place to another in a whirlwind. Now, I can't say that nostoc is always greenish, any more than I can say that blackbirds are always black, having seen a white one. We shall quote a scientist who knew of flesh-colored nostoc, when so to know was convenient. Man, this old English. When we come to reported falls of gelatinous substances, I'd like it to be noticed how often they are described as whitish or grayish. In looking up the subject myself, I have read only of greenish nostoc, said to be greenish in Webster's dictionary, said to be blue-green in the New International Encyclopedia, from bright green to olive green, green, greenish. It would seem acceptable if many reports of white birds should occur. The birds are not blackbirds, even though there have been white blackbirds. Or that, if often reported, grayish or whitish gelatinous substance is not nostoc, and is not spawn, if occurring in times unseasonable for spawn.
And not in a flash and a boom and a hearty high of silver. I mean, that's the other piece of it that makes no sense.
That was kind of some rough 19th century English right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, if, you see one white blackbird, oh, it's an albino blackbird or something, it's an anomalous blackbird kind of thing. But if all of a sudden all the birds are white, those aren't blackbirds anymore. That's a new kind of bird.
Right. And they don't appear spontaneously after a flash and a boom.
Right. And these white grayish blobs,
I do, but
they're consistently all the time whitish grayish blobs being called nostoc, which is consistently and only defined as being green or blue-green.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you got to realize it's not that.
Yeah.
Like if it happened once and it was white, okay, outlier. If it happens all the time and it's white or gray and it's supposed to be green, it's not what you think it is anymore.
Right.
You got to come up with something else.
It's not a genetic anomaly. It's
right. It's a new thing.
Different.
It's a new species or something.
Yeah.
But so it seems that the so-called scientific explanation for the Amherst blobs doesn't match up with the evidence. These blobs are said to be nostoc, but all the characteristics of the thing tell us that it doesn't resemble nostoc really at all. And as it turns out, Western Massachusetts isn't the only place to see these strange blobs of goo fall from the sky. As with the modern reports of frog rain, the earliest reported occurrence of gelatinous blob rain comes from France. Seems like France was the first one to record everything, but this time all the way back in 1669. This is going way back. This is like Moz kind of research. Original stuff from the 1600s.
Well, Pliny was elder than this.
There you go. There you go. But the following was reported again in the American Journal of Science. It is in the records of the French Academy that upon March 17, 1669, in the town of Châtillon-sur-Seine, fell a reddish substance that was thick, viscous, and putrid. Story of a highly unpleasant substance that had fallen from the sky in Wilson County, Tennessee. We read that Dr. Troost visited the place and investigated. Later we're going to investigate some investigations, but never mind that now. Dr. Troost reported that the substance was clear blood and portions of flesh scattered upon tobacco fields. He argued that a whirlwind might have taken an animal up from one place, mauled it around, and have precipitated its remains somewhere else. But in volume 44, page 216 of the journal, there is an apology. The whole matter is, upon newspaper authority, said to have been a hoax by Negroes who had pretended to have seen the shower for the sake of practicing upon the credulity of their masters that they had scattered the decaying flesh of a dead hog over the tobacco fields.
Sounds like ridiculous. Yeah.
The 1600s are blaming the black people.
Yeah,
Go figure.
there we go.
If we don't accept this datum, at least we see the sociologically necessary determination to have all falls accredited to earthly origins, even when they're falls that don't fall.
I have a theory.
Okay.
Isn't that around the same time as that Elizabeth Bathory, the Countess of Blood? I mean, maybe someone finally got around to spring cleaning her castle, and they just kind of hosed it, and it came out the windows, and it's in the field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the reign of terror.
It was the 1600s. I'm pretty sure she was around then. So we can.
Oh yeah, that was before all that even. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
You're as confusing as always, Maz. Thank you. But just so everyone knows, all the gelatinous blob stuff comes from references in the Book of the Damned by Charles Fort in the show notes. Here's another sort of creepy crawly that randomly falls from the sky. You ready? Lizards.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, Maz. In December of 1857, it was reported that a rain of live lizards fell upon the city of Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
That's not a...
How many lizards live in Canada, do you think,
that's not
Maz?
a thing. I don't know. There's no
How many lizards?
hockey teams named after lizards in Canada.
How many
so
lizards?
I'm going to say not many.
How many lizards live in lakes and can be picked up by a tornado or something all at once real quick?
Yeah. I mean, you have to go considerably hundreds of miles south. Many hundreds of miles south.
Where do you find so many lizards in one place that they can all be scooped up by a single event?
Yeah, the commonality of beasties.
Yeah. This is something else we're going to get into as we go.
Maybe it's a weight distribution thing. The heavier ones end up somewhere. The gelatinous ones end up somewhere else.
That's part of a theory for later as well.
Spectrometry.
The weight distribution,
There you go.
But so back to Montreal, Quebec, Canada, December 1857. It was tough to find this one, but I did dig up a newspaper article from the time covering it. This is actually from the Mariposa Democrat on Christmas Eve, 1857. It reads, "Rain of lizards. The Leroy, New York paper states that during a heavy rain, live lizards, some measuring 4 inches in length, came from the clouds like manna, though neither is plenty or half as welcome. They were found crawling on the sidewalks and in the streets like fugitive infantile alligators in places far removed from localities where they inhabit." So yeah, how far would those lizards have to travel?
Was this a show and tell gone horribly wrong?
Crazy, dude. Like, this is where it really starts, like, raining lizards in Canada?
Yeah.
And they're
Doesn't make any
alive.
sense.
They're alive when they hit the ground.
I get it.
They go how far up in the air, travel how far in the atmosphere, fall back down.
It makes no sense.
At the speed of gravity, and they hit the ground, they're still alive, and they walk away?
It's like the cell phone that didn't break. Makes no sense.
Doesn't make sense. And you know what else rains down on our heads every so often, Moss? Let me tell you. Here's a story from May 1985, reported in the Kansas City Daily Journal on June 21st, 1895. Headline, "A shower of black ants." This from the Winnipeg Free Press. "The warm, thunderous state of the atmosphere Wednesday evening presaged a heavy downpour of rain in the city and vicinity. But this expectation was not realized, and the rain passed off with a slight shower. Instead of the rain, a shower of another kind resulted, which is one of the most curious visitations in the history of the city. On the sidewalks, in the roads, upon the roofs, and the inside of the houses, there was seen yesterday numbers of large black ants crawling about. They were found as plentiful in the outskirts of the city as on the main streets, and from the fact that some of these insects have wings, while others have dropped or shed them, it is natural to conclude that they have migrated from some district to the south of the province and have come to stay. They are large, black-bodied specimens, about the size of a wasp, and have the strong nippers of their race. And here is the kicker. They are not natives to Manitoba, and are something similar to the African ant."
Yeah, they're lost.
So what was reported by the locals as a rain of ants may not seem so strange, especially for a winged species that could have just kind of rode in on the wind. But, and you know a but is coming here, Moz, but what would a species native to Africa be doing in Manitoba, Canada?
And again, crawling around. If something's being transported atmospherically, even an ant is not going to be...
They're not all going to be alive
crawling
on the other
around after it's dumped
right.
1,000 miles to several thousand, many thousands of miles away.
Right. And not all of them had the wings. Only some of them had wings.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems strange, right? Like MLT level strange here, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I was hoping. Or else I wasted a lot of time writing
I've never
this.
heard the lizards or the ants.
Yeah. So we got frogs, we got fish, we got lizards, we got ants, we got gelatinous fungus.
Yeah.
All just randomly falling from the sky in random places where it really doesn't belong.
Nice.
Well, now that we've shown the range of strange things that fall from the sky, I'd like to hop back to the topic of frogs.
Oh,
see what I did
boy.
there? They are kind of the poster species for this animal rain thing, so we're going to do a segment on specifically on the frogs falling from the sky here. We spoke about the ancient and biblical references to frogs raining from the sky a little bit with the Pliny the Elder and all that. And we gave the earliest recorded modern occurrence, as far as I can tell, from France during the Revolution. Now let's get into some of the better reported frog rains between then and now, focusing on the ones for which I could find verifying newspaper articles. And by the way, everybody, Chronicling America from the Library of Congress is such a great reference for old newspaper stuff. It's from like 1794 to current.
Yeah.
And you can find stories on everything.
Oh, I found a giant frog one in there that I'll be doing when
you go.
When we talk about
it's like
frogs.
my favorite reference material source.
Yeah, and you can do the search words,
Yeah, you can do which state you want to look in, what years you want to look for, what phrases you want to look for. Mm-hmm. It does really good searches. It highlights the parts that have your words. Oh, it's brilliant.
Yeah, I found some accounts of things I'd never heard before, and they'll spice up some of my cryptidy episodes as well.
There you go. If you click on the links for these following articles in the show notes, it'll take you to the place we're talking about. You can use it to find whatever you want. It's only American papers. It's only U.S. papers. Mm-hmm. But is it well done, and it goes all the way back. It's great.
Yeah.
Anywho, let's start with one of the more literarily pleasing write-ups I found about a rain of frogs. This one occurring right here in our home base of Arizona, Moz, back in 1864. Let's read this article from Overland Monthly and Out West Magazine, July 1871. Headline, A Rain of Frogs in Arizona. The phenomenon, familiarly known as the rain of frogs, has been ridiculed and contradicted by certain scientists. Nevertheless, there is abundant proof to show that it has occurred and probably will again. In 1864, the writer, in company with some 50 other travelers, had personal experience of the fact. There's 50 people watching this. We were in Arizona, not less than 20 miles from any stream, pond, or water.
Not hard to believe.
Yeah, that's most of Arizona. You're not anywhere close to water, pretty much everywhere here. The day was extremely sultry, and we had halted to let the animals graze and rest for an hour or two. Not a living thing besides ourselves and horses was in sight, and certainly no frogs were hopping over the rich, tufted grama grass, which covered the ground for miles in every direction. Suddenly, a dense, black cloud made its appearance, and it soon began to discharge a copious rain upon our unsheltered heads. The drops were very large, and the water quite warm. Nearly every person wore a broad-brimmed felt hat, which proved a great protection against the rain as well as against the sun. Our attention was soon arrested by the pelting of something which struck our hats like hail, but which proved to be frogs. And in less than 2 minutes, the grass was fairly alive with those creatures. Several of the party took some from their hat rims. Our unexpected visitors were all of one size, about 1/4 of an inch long from nose to rump, very lively and apparently in the best condition. Their tail had been broken by the springy, resilient nature of the grass. It is not probable that several 100,000, perhaps millions, of frogs had suddenly been hatched into life in the ground by the rain, or if they had, that in their infantile glee they jumped 5 feet 11 inches from the earth to the top of our heads merely to show how the game of leapfrog should be played. Nor had they any such caudal appendages as are generally attached to juvenile rana. They came from above in company with the rain, and this fact was made clear by holding out the hand and seeing their fall upon it, as well as finding them on our hat rims. This is where he gets into his own theory. The eggs from which these reptiles sprung had undoubtedly been drawn up into the atmosphere by the action of a waterspout and held in suspension with aqueous particles long enough to hatch them out and give them perfect form. Then by the force of mutual attraction, the separated particles of vapor got together in such masses as to form heavy sheets of water, which in turn became amenable to the law of attraction of gravitation, returning to the earth from whence it had been drawn. In the fall, new divisions were created called drops, among which the frogs descended, having been obedient to similar forces moving with the aqueous particles. This instance is cited to show that other things besides vapor are translated from earth to atmosphere by certain well-known and accredited developments of natural laws. Sounds like some old school 19th century hoodoo type science there.
Bovine guano.
Well said. So he's saying the explanation here is a storm picked up a bunch of frog eggs, held them in suspension up in the atmosphere in a way that allowed them to still mature and hatch and become living, healthy frogs.
All at the same time.
And then they rained down.
They rained down as they were all birthing.
1 million of them.
1 million.
A million of them.
That's a great...
And note, all the same species of frog. It's all just the one species of frog.
Like you said,
every single incident, and we'll get into this more, but I do want to get this point into your head now. Almost every single incident that I can find of any of these things,
one thing.
It's only one species that's falling from the sky.
And gazillions of the same thing.
And
so if it was a pond, it would be the whole pond.
Thousands and thousands, if not millions of them at a time.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's another account. But why wouldn't they have ruled out that these things jump from the ground? If millions are falling from the sky, someone would have looked up to confirm, yes, they're up there.
Well, that's what he's saying. They were putting out their hands and catching them. They were hitting them in the head.
Yeah.
They weren't seeing
them
jump.
He was being a little facetious with the whole jumping up.
Right. Yeah, that party was being very tongue-in-cheek.
Gotcha.
They definitely were falling from the sky. They weren't jumping up onto their heads, jumping up into their hands. They were falling onto their heads, falling into their hands. Yeah. And continuing on this frog bent, let's take you to Kansas City, where in June of 1873, a shower of frogs darkened the air and covered the ground. Scientific American blamed it on a tornado, but there are no reports of severe weather that day. Can you please read us the following report of the event from the Kansas City, Missouri News, Moz?
A shower of frogs. Nature furnishes something more for our people to wonder about or speculate upon this morning by sending down during the heavy rain a fine shower of frogs or toads. These toads fell by the hundreds, those who saw the shower declaring the air was thick with them, and the ground in the locality between New Delaware and Central and 10th and 14th Streets was fairly strewn with the little hoppins for some time after the rain. From the description of them, we would judge that they varied in size from that of a piece of coal to a lump of chalk, although Judge Porter says some of them were as large as the end of a man's thumb.
Those are some very 19th century American measurements there.
There you go.
I'm not sure how big a piece of coal or a lump of chalk is intended to be, but I know about how big the end of a man's thumb is because I have one.
There you go.
So they weren't very big.
Well, that's the other thing is these things seem to be smaller than the smaller variety of lizard, the smaller variety, except the ants were bigger, but they're still tiny.
But they're ants, so they're inherently small.
Right.
Yeah, the lizards were only like 4 inches long.
Yeah. A lot of these things are the same, and a lot of these things are of a smaller variety.
Right.
So,
but it's the fact that it's always the one species.
Yeah.
But continuing on, now let's go to Dubuque, Iowa, 1882. This from commonplacefacts.com. You want to do the follow-up here, Moss?
Not to be outdone, Missouri's neighbor to the north also reported amphibian precipitation, this time in the form of frozen frogs. On June 16, 1882, the city of Dubuque, Iowa, witnessed a hailstorm of frogs that battered its unsuspecting inhabitants. Meteorologists speculate that Kansas City phenomenon was caused by a small tornado that happened to pick up a population of unfortunate frogs and carry them in what must have been the biggest frog leap in history. The Dubuque incident was likely the result of a tornado or very powerful updraft lifting the frogs high into the atmosphere, where they were flash frozen before beginning their return to Earth many miles distant.
Okay, so here we see it being blamed on the weather again.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. This was more a hail of frogs rather than a rain, as the frogs were all frozen solid as they fell from the sky. Makes this one a little different. This was the middle of June, mind you. Makes you wonder how high up they would have to go and for how long to freeze solid like that. This again was blamed on a tornado, specifically a strong enough tornado to launch all these frogs high enough in the atmosphere to freeze solid before falling back to Earth. But again, here's the thing. There were no reports of severe weather in the area that day. How many hundreds of miles would they have to have traveled for that excuse to work, I wonder? You have any thoughts on that, Moz?
Well, I mean, it is amazing they're all different. It's amazing how many are alive. It's amazing that they're all the same thing, same species. But this one does make sense to me on some level, because yes, you could freeze up at the higher, if things are brought up into high enough. But it's still, it's a different variation of a weird theme. And
for them all to stay together and all fall at once in one place.
Right.
Like you would think they would fall.
This is more
like as they went, they would be, they wouldn't all just stay up there in a chunk and then fall together.
This has the ring of more of a practical joke by aliens.
Kind of, right?
Yeah. It does, actually. Maybe that's my Aho Guano theory.
Yeah. Maybe it's the Vogons messing with us.
Yeah. This is their warning that the highway is coming through.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, I just needed one more Douglas Adams reference in there before I moved on. And moving on. Then there was May 21st, 1921, when in North London, England, small frogs were swirling around the sky during a thunderstorm. This one's great. They weren't even like raining down. They were just swirling around in the air. Not raining down, not falling, swirling around like frickin' birds in the middle of a thunderstorm. How cool is that? They were all alive.
Yeah.
And when they did finally hit the ground, they were reported to hop about in an agitated state. So they were fine from the experience, which blows my mind. And just a few months later, all the way over in Calgary, Canada, back to Canada again, another rain of frogs fell from the sky. Specifically on August 4th, 1921, a rain of frogs fell in the area of 11th Avenue in Calgary, and the frogs were apparently eaten by a roving horde of feral cats that were known to be prowling the city at the time. How cool is it?
Yeah.
I'd like to see that bloodbath. That must have been wild.
But you do have some hints in this one, because we get to see that these things are transporting through the atmosphere. They are alive. They are very high up. They do land. They do live.
Yeah.
In some ways, we get a little more of a hint of what might be happening with some of these other incidents.
There you go. Now let's jump to the other side of the planet in the other direction, over to Brisbane, Australia. We haven't been to Australia yet for this one.
But that's where all the frogs swirl the other way in the air. Just
correct.
So you all know.
They're going counterclockwise.
Right.
But under a printed picture of one of the frogs, the article from the Brisbane Sunday Mail, Sunday 9 April 1939 reads, "Frogs fell from the sky in a shower at Ewingdale on the north coast of New South Wales on Wednesday. Many motorists had hundreds plastered over their cars after the bombardment. The photograph shows one of dozens which were removed from a windscreen. The frogs were less than 1 inch in length and were colored black and cream." So there you go again, less than 1 inch in length.
Another small batch.
Another little guy. So kind of plays into the whole the wind could pick them up thing, I guess.
But again, similar color, similar species.
All one species and falling, but so many of them fall in individual cars
100
would have hundreds on them.
Yeah.
So how many millions of these things just fell from the sky for that to happen?
Yeah.
And I did a little follow-up on this one. Notice it said they were colored black and cream, right? Mm-hmm. Did a little follow-up. Searching the interwebs for black and cream colored frogs. The closest thing I found was the white-black tree frog. You want to hear what Wiki says about these guys?
Let's do it.
The white-black tree frog, Boana albanigra, is a species of frog in the family Hylidae, endemic to Bolivia. Bolivia. This is Australia that this happened. Its natural habitats are subtropical or tropical moist montane forests, subtropical or tropical high-altitude shrubland, subtropical or tropical high-altitude grassland, and rivers. So pretty sure these things didn't belong in Australia, as they do not have any environment to live in there, and they are from halfway around the world.
So Bolivia and
Bolivian
in Brisbane.
Yes, Bolivian rainforest frogs are raining down in Australia.
Yep.
I didn't find any frogs native to Australia matching the description of these things.
Yeah.
So did a tornado in South America, thousands of miles away across the Pacific Ocean, throw these things so high up in the air that they traveled halfway around the world before they came back down, all in the same place, mind you, in a very small locale where they all fell? It seems a little far-fetched to me, Moz. What do you think?
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Far-fetched.
Ah, yeah. You like that?
Yeah.
I forgot that was a joke. I write those in and I forget they're even jokes.
Frog-fetched.
I even put it in italics. Far-fetched. Sorry, let me do that again. Seems a little far-fetched to me, doesn't it, Moz? So
no,
that's how I
don't see what you did there that
time. Thank you for picking up on my humor. I'm so dry-witted, I forget that I'm being funny sometimes. Anywho, just a few months after the Brisbane event, we have 16 June 1939, back over in Towbridge, England. See, we just keep circling the planet, trying to show how pervasive this is.
Counterclockwise.
Keeps going down the timeline, keeps different places all over the place. It's everywhere all the time. In this case, rather than what seems the typical live frogs raining down during a storm, the people of Towbridge rather witnessed hundreds of already dead frogs falling from the sky a short time before a storm came rolling through. That's a little weird. Not sure what those discrepancies might indicate, but I figured they were worth noting. Makes this one a little different.
Towbridge, there's my theory. They were broken down somewhere.
Oh, they were towed like a tow truck.
Yeah. Okay, it's terrible. But Towbridge.
Okay, so back into it. We are going to go back to Australia again. We just keep spinning the globe with this blurb from the Grafton, New South Wales, Australia Daily Examiner, dated Monday, the 25th, January, 1943. You want to read this one for us, Moz?
Sure. During a storm that passed over Harwood Island last week, people on parts of the island were surprised to see small brown frogs falling with the rain, and quite a number were seen on the ground after the rain had ceased. Recently, in a Sydney suburb, when heavy rain fell, millions of these small frogs were found.
Millions. And now back around to my old homeland, Leicester, Massachusetts, where on September 7th, 1953, a downpour of frogs and toads, and this one's a little different because it says, of all descriptions, began falling from the sky over Leicester, Massachusetts. The streets seemed to be alive with them, and children gathered them into buckets using their hands, making a game of the astounding event. That one, to me, is the most, or I should say, least weird, because it is multiple types.
But it's still only frogs.
You
would see fish. If it's a pond, you would see all kinds of little animals.
Exactly. You get all kinds of different stuff, right? Anything about the same size and weight would come down together, even if you're dealing... But anywho, digressing. We'll do that later. Next up, we have 3 instances of reported frog rain in Greece that happened over the next couple decades.
We'll
run through some stuff here. You ready?
Okay.
On the 17th of June, 1963, in Porto Lago of Koomotini, Thrace, North Greece, several drivers reported that during a heavy rain around midnight, they saw little living frogs coming down with the rain. On 29th of June, 1979, nearly 16 years after the June 1963 fall in Komotini, another fall of frogs took place in the same area. In the a.k.a. area near Komotini, thousands of them fell simultaneously with the rain. The frog fall was so heavy that the cars moving on the road connecting a.k.a. to Komotini had to stop for a while because the road was completely covered with frogs. How many millions of frogs is that? The citizens of Naflion, a city in southern Greece, were surprised one morning in May 1981 when they awoke to find small green frogs falling from the sky. Weighing just a few ounces each, the frogs landed in trees and plopped into the streets. The species of frog was native to North Africa.
So this is in Greece, and now it's North Africa. So we are always
They would have had to have been picked up in North Africa.
Far. Always very far.
They crossed the entire Mediterranean and rained down on Greece.
Now, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But anywho, so species of these things falling in places thousands of miles from their native territories seems to be way too common. And some of them happening in places where tornadoes aren't even a thing. And some
everywhere
of the places,
you could have. Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, tornadoes don't just happen everywhere.
They kind of do, but not very, very, very rare. Some places.
Not in a way that they're going to throw
never,
these things high enough in the atmosphere to send them thousands of miles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would have own specific places, maybe you'd pull that off, but not all over the place for all these different things.
And the distances are daunting.
Right. But crazy stuff. So let's jump ahead. I've been trying to kind of like follow the timeline.
Chronological, you said.
Chronological. It's almost chronological. Yeah. But we're going to jump. So, you know, we got up to the 1980s there. So we're going to jump into the 2000s now. I'm going to take you to Serbia. This is a place we haven't been. This is in 2005 in Serbia. I'm cherry picking stuff to fill in a timeline, but there are a whole bunch of these recorded in between the ones I'm doing. So if you want to do your own deep dive on the subject, definitely go in and start clicking on those show notes. You'll see unbelievable amounts of these stories. But anywho, the one I'm focusing on right now, back to Serbia, 2005. Oh, you want to take this one, Moss?
Okay, so it's June 7th?
June 7th, 2005.
Okay. June 7th, 2005 at 11:35 a.m. Frogs fall from the sky in rural Serbia, Belgrade. Thousands of tiny frogs rained on a town in northwestern Serbia, the Belgrade Daily Blick reported on Tuesday. Strong winds brought storm clouds over Adzakija, 120 kilometers northwest of Belgrade, on Sunday afternoon. But instead of rain, tiny amphibians fell from above, witnesses said. I saw countless frogs fall from the sky, said Adzakija resident Alexander Kirkic. The frogs, different from those usually seen in the area, survived the fall and hopped around in search of water.
And there you go. Once again, they fall from the sky at terminal velocity, hit the ground, and just hop away. They're fine.
Yeah.
Now, to follow our pattern of jumping back and forth from one side of the planet to the other, I bring you the Japanese tadpole rains of 2009. All through June and into July of 2009, numerous cases of tadpoles raining down from the sky, as well as some instances of fish rain in the mix. This happened across the countryside on no less than 12 different days between early June and early July, with some days having multiple, even numerous events in a single day. The peak of activity seemed to have been on the 17th and 18th of June. The list is way too long to cover here, but you can find it at the link for pinktentacle.com in the show notes if you want to get into the whole thing. It's an extensive list. And These same tadpoles for like weeks kept raining down on this same piece of the coast and whatnot. Like they were just up there and they kept falling in bunches.
And again, not a mix of tadpoles and frogs, just tadpoles.
Right. Apparently a little fish got mixed in with them.
Oh, okay.
In the midst of that, but it was almost exclusively tadpoles throughout all those events that happened over weeks. And like every day, somewhere in that region, it rained more tadpoles by like the thousands and thousands. So cool to check out. We don't have time to do it here. Links in the show notes. Moving on. Then in 2010... I'm not going to be able to say this, Rakosafalva, Hungary. It's in Hungary. Saw hundreds of frogs fall from the sky after residents reported hearing a loud noise followed by a sudden downpour. So there we have the loud noise preceding the frog rain, which is sort of a callback to the Amherst thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get off the frogs at this point because I think my point is proven. I'm going to bring our timeline up to current with some stories about a different kind of creature falling from the sky. This might be a bit creepier than the cute but curious frogs, and it's what I said got me into this to begin with. Let's talk about worms.
Alaskan bullworms or Mongolian deathworms?
Oh God, imagine if it rained Mongolian deathworms.
Yeah, everyone would be electrocuting. Like, that would be bad.
That's like the end of the city.
Yeah, that's
like a biblical.
That's a bad day.
That's biblical proportion type plague right there.
Yeah, that's the aliens doing a really cruel joke.
Yeah. Those damn Vogons, man. But anywho, it does seem to be the latest trend in weird, creepy crawlies raining down from the sky is worms. Seems to be the latest thing. But let's start with this story from Channel 9, WAFB in Louisiana. This is from July 12th, 2007. Headline: Worms fall from the sky in Jennings. Jennings Police Department employee Eleanor Beale was just crossing the street to go to work when something dropped from the sky. The sky wasn't falling. She says it was worms, large, tangled clumps of them. Beale says, quote, "When I saw that they were crawling, I said, 'It's worms, get out of the way.'" She even called her co-worker outside to prove she wasn't making it up. Sure enough, she saw worms, and globs of them. Where they came from is a mystery, but some believe that a water spout spotted less than 5 miles away at that same time, near Lacassine Bayou, could have something to do with it. Eleanor Beale says she hopes she doesn't see it again. So that one's interesting. There was a water spout right nearby on a body of water. That's the closest people may have come to actually witnessing the up portion of this event.
Right.
Almost got there where they could say, "Oh, there it was. We saw it." You know what I mean? But not quite.
I still feel like if you're there, you're just not going to see anything except it hit the pond where they might have been.
Right, but if then you can go look at the pond and say, yes, there's a big population of these worms in there, and you could put it together in a scientific fashion if you put in the time and effort to do so.
I don't know with the one
But you would have to find...
With just the one thing.
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
What else is in that pond? There's not just one thing living in a body of water ever.
Ever.
You know?
Ever.
Ever.
It's an ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's not an creature.
Right. It's not an omni-system, it's an ecosystem.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Anywho, and what may be the most famous of worm rain stories, at least currently, is because it's so recent and went viral on the interwebs. This is from 2023, a video of supposed worms on the YouTube. So this was just last year. A lot of listeners might actually remember this. But this is the one that got me into it. This is an article from the New York Post. And spoiler alert, this is the one I said I was going to debunk. So hold on to your tuchuses for that one. Here is the article. China needs to call Rihanna for some umbrellas to weather this phenomenon of nature. See, they started with a joke. Nice. Citizens of the Chinese province.
We can't blame you for that one.
Nope, I didn't write that one. That's bad enough that I might have written it, but it was not me. Citizens of the Chinese province of Liaoning were told to find shelter after it looked like it started to rain worms. A viral clip showed the area apparently being showered with little worms, which were splattered all over cars. The video showed residents covering themselves with umbrellas. Oh, that's your idea, Moz. Yeah. As they go along with their routines
actually,
and wander past. While the cause of the slimy creature calamity has yet to be uncovered, the scientific journal Mother Nature Network suggested that the animals were dropped after being swept up by heavy winds. See? It's always the excuse. The periodical also noted that this type of occurrence happens after a storm when insects are caught up in a whirlpool. Another theory suggested that the worms were actually poplar flowers, a tulip tree whose blooms resemble the squirmy beasts. Viewers were stunned by the city's current problem, with one person stating, "These are not worms or animals, but flower stalks dropped from trees." So it appears that the most famous case of this whole topic that I'm talking about is the one that stands out as being very possibly debunked, and really is pretty much debunked. Those were leaves from a tree that resemble worms, and when the wind blows, it makes it look like they're squirming. So not encouraging.
No, but how would you not know? How would you mistake? I mean, ultimately, you're looking at these things.
The people who were there did not say it was worms. The people on the internet said it was, somebody saw the video and was like, "Whoa, that looks like worms." So they said it was worms.
Ooh. Oh, this is the story that was debunked that started your journey.
Right.
I'm tracking back.
Right.
Okay.
I saw the video. I was like, "Whoa, it's raining worms in China? I have a paranormal podcast. I need to look into this."
Yeah.
And that specific story was debunked. But once I saw all these other things, that I'm like, "Oh, dude, like this is real deal." You know, it was a real deal topic at that point.
You know where that happened? In a white worm with black curtains near the station. Yeah.
Black and cream colored.
That's
black
what I'm
and
saying.
cream colored.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I hope at least someone out there gets us, Moz. Anywho, let's move on.
Happened after a Clapton of thunder.
So on that Chinese worm rain, score one for the skeptics because it is debunked. But the rest of this stuff is far too well documented to let this one exception get me down. Especially since just a couple months later, we had reports of a rain of white worms in India, which is a whole different can of worms.
Oh,
from that last story. I didn't even have that one written down. That was spontaneous. That's how bad I am. Here is another article from the New York Post on the India worm rain. You want to read this one for us, Moz?
White worms rained from the sky, pummeling Indian town in disturbing video. It was like a ticker tape worm parade.
Nice.
Sure, Sharknado might be fake, but this worm soon has been caught on video.
Hold on, time out. I'm pretty sure I proved Sharknado to be a real thing.
Yeah, that's right. So now you can tell that back in.
The Bat Squatch side trail. Squatch side trail.
There you go.
Side trail 33. I'm sorry. Continue on, Moss.
Now, viral footage captured the wretch-worthy moment that seemingly thousands of white worms rained down from the sky in India like some kind of bizarro biblical plague. In the alarming clip, filmed Tuesday in Bharat and East India, state bordering Nepal, the creepy crawlies can be seen hailing down until the road is carpeted with the thick layer of the unidentified critters, according to Reuters. This is Reuters.
Mm-hmm.
Horrified locals started shuttering their shops, like in the scene out of an old western, to protect themselves from the spaghetti-esque confetti, which thankfully didn't end up harming anyone, local media outlets reported. The provenance of these worms is still unclear more than 24 hours later.
I love how they got the spaghetti-esque in there with the western.
Oh,
that's a great article, dude. That was actually really funny.
A little Clint Wormwood.
Yeah. But quick note on that. I did write it in here. I wouldn't be so quick to write off the Sharknado. It is discussed in the Side Trail 33, which is part of the episode 36 compilation of Side Trails.
Which is the script to Sharknado 7.
May as well be, yeah.
Yeah.
But back on track here to the rain of white worms.
The lair of the white worm.
These
one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's not one you should watch when you're too young.
Yeah, it's a little racy, you know.
It's on the list of movies that made me weird. I watched so many movies I shouldn't have watched when I was like 10 to 12.
Explains a lot, yeah.
It does. It really does. Freddy Krueger and things like that, too. You know, it's multiple genres of things that I should not have been watching at that age. But, now I have a podcast, so it was all worth it.
Figure out why you're so weird.
But these worms raining down in piles in India, no one can even tell you what kind of worms they were a full day after they started falling from the sky. Now, this one is not debunked in any way. These worms definitely rained down. These were live worms raining from the sky. Millions and millions of them. Definitely happened. There's video online of this as well. but they can't figure out what kind of worms they were or where they came from. Like they're a new species that just rained down. This was last year.
Okay.
2023.
So they did have cameras last year, to my knowledge.
Yeah, like this one's
you
also
keep jumping around, so I'm trying to figure out where we're at.
Well, this one happened just after the debunked one in China, but the date on the article from New York Post for the white worms in India is May 17th, 2023.
Yeah.
So basically a year ago from when we're recording this.
But it was only the iPhone 11, not 12.
I don't keep track of such
mind.
things. If it can't count the worms for me, then I don't care. But in this day and age, this is the 2020s. This happened just a year ago. So we have the technology. We have the knowledge. No one has seen this kind of worm before. And it rained down. They rained down by the millions on India last year.
That's other planetary worms.
Kind of panspermia-ish.
Yeah. Wow. You have another theory for panspermia.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing a 2-parter on panspermia after Owl Week in
but if this
season
happens
2.
Anywhere,
I believe it'll be in like November.
What if this happened on a planet that isn't quite ready for, larger, but it could, some of the worms survive in an environment. Mm-hmm. It could actually really jump the whole evolution of a planet.
I have a lot I can say about that right now, but it's all for the panspermia episode.
Sorry.
So you're going to have to wait for like 7 months or so.
There you go.
6 or 7 months. I'm not even sure what the timeline is on that, but season 2 after Owl Week, I will be doing a multi-parter on panspermia. So I'm going to finish the evidentiary. Oh, actually, we do have the headlining piece coming up, but I'm going to do a little bit of theory. Let's jump back on the timeline. See, this is where the chron illogical comes in. Back to 1871, and returning to the previously referenced Book of the Damned by Charles Fort, published in 1919. Passage reads as follows. That, upon the 22nd of April, 1871, a storm of glutinous drops, neither jellyfish nor masses of frog spawn, but something of a, and there's a line missing in the original text, jumping, railroad station at Bath, many soon developed into a worm-like chrysalis about an inch in length. The account of this occurrence in the zoologist is more like the Eton datum, of minute forms said to have been infusoria, it's single-celled organisms, not forms about an inch in length. Okay, aside here, he's basically saying that they potentially weren't really like worms. They were more like the gelatinous blobs, where it was a
very large single-celled organism.
A colony of single-celled organisms.
But way too big.
But big.
Like they shouldn't be that big.
Right. Okay.
So from another planet.
Oh, I got you on a bent now, didn't I?
You did.
All right, let's continue on with the article here. That the phenomenon has been investigated by the Reverend L. Jennens of Bath. His description is of minute worms in filmy envelopes. He tries to account for their segregation. The mystery of it is, what could have brought so many of them together?
Love.
Many other falls we shall have record of, and in most of them, segregation is the great mystery. A whirlwind seems anything but a segregative force. Segregation of things that have fallen from the sky has been avoided as most deep died of the damned. Mr. Jennens conceives of a large pool in which were many of these spherical masses, of the pool drying up and concentrating all in a small area, of a whirlwind then scooping up all together. But several days later, more of these objects fell in the same place. That such marksmanship is not attributable to whirlwinds seems to me to be what we think we mean by common sense. It may not look like common sense to say that these things had been stationary over the town of Bath several days. The 7 black rains of Slains, the 4 red rains of Siena, An interesting sidelight on the mechanics of orthodoxy is that Mr. Jennings dutifully records the second fall, but ignores it in his explanation. So again, a little convenient, isn't it? But let's unpack that real quick. We're dealing with that old language again. So the real question being raised is, if these frogs or fish or worms or what's is falling from the sky with some frequency all over the world, are being lifted by whirlwinds and tornadoes from bodies of water, how is it that in almost every case there is only a single species of animal falling from the sky?
Again, yes.
We've touched on this. He just spelled it out for us.
Right.
These pools of water in which they live are diverse with life of many kinds. So how would it be that only a certain kind of frog or certain kind of fish or worm or what have you falls at a time, singular in species and numerous in number?
But if you have an alien thesis and they're just doing it on a certain thing, they're going to have a bunch of them in the cargo hold, and then when they have to fly back, they're like, we don't need all this water and all these frogs in here.
Mm-hmm.
Beep.
It's almost like a seeding operation in a way, if you look at it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Back to my script. And in cases like the repeated rains in Bath over days and repeated tadpole events in Japan that I was talking about, stuff like that, would the whirlwind in theory, even if otherwise verified, even apply anymore? Because if it tossed them up and they're coming back down, why would some of them fall and the other ones would stay up there for another week and then fall? Doesn't make any sense. Does the theory of weather lifting these things and making them rain down hold any real relevance in the first place when you start thinking of it that way?
No.
Thank you. All right, so think on that for a minute. We aren't quite ready to dive into our theory section because no bio-rain episode.
I have a theory why this is taking so long, because we didn't jump right to the theory section. I have theories. I have a theory I'm fomenting.
Yes, I'm giving you time to think about it because I'm now bringing you the headline act for our Animal Rain episode here. We're going to talk about the infamous Kentucky meat shower incident.
Dang. I think I saw that movie. With Porky's 2 and that.
This is where the subtitle of the episode came from. Cloudy with a Chance of Meat Blobs.
There we go.
The following is an original newspaper article from the New York Times. Dateline Louisville, Kentucky, March 9th, 1876. Headline, Flesh Descending in a Shower.
Is this going to get racy?
I was just going to say, is that a porn?
Back to the lair of the white worm.
Anywho, an astounding phenomenon in Kentucky. Fresh meat like mutton or venison falling from a clear sky.
Where the mutton's really lean.
It's an MLT. The Bath County News of this date says, quote, on last Friday, a shower of meat fell near the house of Alan Crouch, who lives some 2 or 3 miles from the Olympian Springs in the southern portion of the county.
Alan Crouch.
Covering a strip of ground about 100 yards in length and 50 wide. Mrs. Crouch was out in the yard at the time, engaged in making soap, when meat, which looked like beef, began to fall around her. The sky was perfectly clear at the time, and she said it fell like large snowflakes, the pieces as general thing not being much larger. One piece fell near her which was 3 or 4 inches square. Mr. Harrison Gill, whose veracity is unquestionable, and from whom we obtained the above facts, hearing of the occurrence, visited the locality the next day, and says he saw particles of meat sticking to the fences and scattered over the ground. The meat, when it first fell, appeared to be perfectly fresh. The correspondent of the Louisville Commercial, writing from Mount Sterling, corroborates the above and says the pieces of flesh were of various sizes and shapes, some of them being 2 inches square. 2 gentlemen who tasted the meat expressed the opinion that it was either mutton or venison.
Dang.
So let me ask you, Moz, before the next bit, if random chunks of mystery meat blobs fell from the sky in abundance one day, would you be tempted to eat it?
No, but they have really good Kentucky bourbon sauce in Kentucky, so I imagine.
And this week's winner of the Mad Cujo's Award, the guys who ate the meat.
Down boy!
Well, there are this is like the real essence of Mad Cujo's.
Dude, you want to talk about throwing yourself in bodily?
Yeah.
Mystery rain of fresh, bloody meat chunks falling from the sky. What's your reaction? We should eat it.
No, here's my reaction.
That's some Mad Cujo's right
here's
there.
Here's my
dude.
reaction. I have my Wolfman puck formulating right now.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Yes. Yeah, I'm trying to get over. I wrote this. I researched it. I've been thinking about this for a while. I still can't get over the fact that people ate it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, and what we're going to get into is going to show you why I can't get over it. So now let me read you this article about the Kentucky meat shower. It will reiterate the event a bit, but then it's going to give further analysis of the meat.
It may remind you why you should not eat things that land in your backyard
that randomly
from the
fall
sky.
from the sky, correct. Unless it's still a living frog, then you can make frog legs.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose. But they could be, you should probably check radiation levels. I mean, honestly, those kids were putting things in a bucket. And remember the yellow rain in X-Files?
I wasn't even thinking about the radiation aspect. That's actually a good point.
Maybe.
Run your Geiger counter over those frogs before you eat them.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are the 1800s, and I don't know if Geiger was, he was doing his thing.
Yeah. Anywho, what was I doing? Oh, I'm reading this article for you that's going to analyze the meat. All right.
Are we going to get the purple
This is from everything2.com. Link in the show notes. At approximately 2 p.m. on March 3rd, 1876, for a period of a couple of minutes, big chunks of fresh red meat 3 to 4 inches square fell on a 100 by 50 yard area near the home of Alan Crouch.
Alan Crouch.
Near Olympia Springs in Bath County, Kentucky. The Kentucky meat shower, as it came to be known, was... You okay, Moz?
I have to say, you pointed to me knowing what I would say there.
I did. Okay. I caused that. I'm sorry.
No.
As it came to be known, was the cause for serious debate and scientific interest. The story was featured in several major national publications at the time, including the New York Times and Scientific American. The meat appeared to be beef. But when 2 area men, yes, this really happened, tasted the meat, Mad Cujo's, they said it was either mutton or venison. Theories on the meat shower were varied, ranging from frog matter blown into the air to nostoc, there it is again, a form of vegetable matter. A Dr. Alan McLean Hamilton appeared in medical record, stating that he and Dr. J.W.S. Arnold had made a microscopic examination of the material from the Kentucky meat shower. So now we're going to get actually scientific. They had identified the substance as lung tissue from a human infant or a horse, the structure of the organ in these 2 cases being almost identical. Out of the 7 samples...
Stem cell research.
Let me finish and then we'll talk about it. Out of the 7 samples that eventually were examined, 2 were of lung tissue, 3 were muscle tissue, and 2 were cartilage. The most probable theory for the meat shower was that a large pack of buzzards flew over the area after having eaten what was apparently a couple of freshly dead horses, and when one of them spontaneously disgorged itself, all the others, as apparently is customary among buzzards, followed suit.
I don't doubt that happened to people who ate it after they read this.
Yeah, so what do you think of the foolhardy fellows who tasted the mystery meat now?
I have a theory.
At best, it was freshly exploded horse meat.
Yeah, or infant lung.
That was regurgitated by vultures.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the best, but, at least horse meat.
Yeah.
The most popular theory was the horse meat regurgitated by the buzzards.
Human infant.
Worst case scenario was that it was human baby lung.
Yeah.
That they were eating.
Exactly. So
how am I have PTSD from this a little bit, I think.
I have a theory that that's where steakums come from.
Ooh.
Yeah. Maybe. Or scrapple.
Steakums made by skin.
Walkers
made out of baby lung.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Oof. How's that for a Wolfman Puck?
That's awful.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, could we skip
I don't know if
Wolfman
I can
Puck?
even carry on.
Maybe.
We might have to just stop right now.
I don't know about Wolfman Puck for this one. You know, you said I've put us in bad situations for Wolfman Puck. I think you may have put us in the worst situation for Wolfman Puck. So you may win.
I can't wait to hear what you say for that.
I'm coming. It's all coming
because
together.
Mine's already prepared. I know yours isn't.
Yeah. Well, I think I got it now.
That's great. But okay, I can't talk about that anymore. So we're gonna wrap up our events section and get into our theories finally. You ready to get into the theories, Moz?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna start with something I gathered along the way. This is the theory put forth by Charles Fort, author of Book of the Damned, which is referenced extensively in this episode. His main theory, in light of the singular species conundrum, in lack of any hard evidence as to how these things get in the air to begin with, is all about teleportation. He believes these things are suddenly transported through space-time to a place otherwheres and are then discharged from whatever field transported them there and rain down wherever they happen to be, which is much in line with my Ahul Guano theory of the week.
There you go.
That I came up with. But before I get into that, would you like to share any of your own theories or anything right at this point, Moz?
I'm going to build off this because I sent you this, and it does build off Charles Fort's theory. It's Lauren Coleman, and I know you it's kind of covered in Charles Fort, so I guess that's why you skipped it, but I wanted to add this from Lauren Coleman because it's one of the things I found and sent to you. It's from Lauren Coleman's Mysterious America.
That link you sent me from him is what led me to the Book of the Damned, which is what I ended up using for the actual references.
Right, so it all comes back.
It's
full,
working off of each other.
Full reverse counterclockwise circle.
Yeah, counterclockwise because
Yeah.
it's Australian.
But it really is just a building off of it, but he goes into more just what he calls quantum entanglement for this, and this is Lauren Coleman. In principle, teleportation could be used to send information to create replicas of objects, not just light beams. Researchers are already looking to teleport atoms. Fortians merely have to look at old records. I would guess that Charles Fort might wonder what all the fuss is about. Hasn't something already experimented with teleportation? Doesn't the damn data reflect these experimentations on a broader scale?
Oh, so that's literally an extension of what I just said.
Correct.
Because he's talking to Charles Fort, who I was just talking about. That's great.
Yeah.
So he's taken it one step farther.
Yeah.
And is saying that teleportation has been a proven thing and that it's based in the quantum entanglement realm.
Right. Right.
And has an actual scientific backing is basically what he's trying to say there, I guess. Huh?
Yeah. And I could go into my monster theory real quick if it's a good time to do that. It doesn't really link because my monster theory is more about old school, why we see what we see from a quantum perspective. This is more about, which doesn't actually fit this one. But this is more about science, like what Coleman is saying. They've already been these experimentations. It explains why all this same item is dropping from the sky by the millions.
Right.
It's to me, it reminded me of when Scotty beamed all the tribbles into the Klingon engine room.
Yeah,
it's the same idea.
There you go.
So for me, that's the more scientific version. It's somebody's figuring this stuff out, playing experiments and bopping things around, or you go back to the aliens that are doing it just to kind of mess with us a little bit. Let's drop some white worms in India today.
Yeah, like they're seeding some, beaming the tribbles into the one room.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a great metaphor for this, honestly.
Yeah.
That's great, Moz. Thank you. That really kind of snapped in my brain right there.
There you go. And it really pissed those Klingons off, too, that day.
Yeah. And another one that comes from an outside source. So I finished writing my script for this episode while I was at a bar in Flagstaff that I frequent. And one of the other regulars there, one of the other inhabitants of the dark underbelly of Flagstaff, I started talking to him about this, and he's very much a skeptic, but he's weird in his own way.
Mm-hmm.
He started talking about the concept of like atmospheric rivers, where like the Amazon rainforest sends its water to the Sahara so the Sahara can have water kind of stuff. And then the whole thing where...
Stratospheric mycelium.
Here we go. And then you start talking about the mycelium in the ground that allows the trees to communicate, and they pass each other,
right?
You know, fluids and gases and stuff, you know, whatever it is.
This is Gaia hypothesis here.
What if there's a natural mechanism that takes it to the next thing where, hey, that place needs some frogs, and it just sends the frogs.
Wow. But even the stratosphere, what goes on with lightning, they don't understand. And when you're talking about above a thunderstorm, what happens? Yeah. So that area, that band, that last stretch of Gaia before we go into deep space is an unknown.
Are you talking about the edge of the atmosphere?
In between.
The liminal space between the atmosphere and
space and atmosphere.
Like where the monsters would live on the edge of things?
Here be monsters in the stratosphere. The edge of the upper end of the stratosphere.
Yeah. But it is the whole... I don't doubt that a tornado could pick up a pond of small creatures and throw it up in the air and make them fall somewhere.
Yeah. That's the Scully Muggle rendition.
I don't think it can pick up a millions of a single species,
right,
and drop them in one spot without leaving a trail of other things along the way.
Unless you have an atmospheric river. That was
unless you have stratospheric mycelium with an atmospheric river that is very purposefully moving these things around.
Yeah. And depositing them alive.
Then there is also I touched on the panspermia thing, which again I'm not going to go too deep into, but you know, if it's like the dandelion seed thing we talked about in the alien probes and whatnot. But those white worms, maybe Oumuamua sent them, you know?
Yeah.
That kind of concept.
Yep.
There's also that. I really like that one. I'm going to buy that guy a beer next time I see him. That whole...
That was good. Well, you were thinking mycelium,
and he also
too, though, right? I mean, you made that connection.
Yeah, because he talked about the atmospheric river thing, and he also told me about the underground rivers. Did you know there's a river underground under the Amazon River that's 100 times wider than the Amazon itself? That's flowing under the Amazon underground.
I knew that right now.
Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing.
So he talked about that underground.
Are you talking about Bezos?
Both underground rivers and atmospheric rivers, and then I had the concept of, and trees talk to each other through mycelium, and then that whole thing came together in my brain. Was like, wow,
nice.
Like it's a totally natural thing, but nature's like very purposefully doing it, which would be really weird.
It's very Gaia.
Yeah, very it's the conscious earth kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The earth itself has a consciousness. Oh, man. I think I might have outdone my Ahuguano theory. Do you have anything else to do before I jump into my actual Ahuguano theory?
I have an Ahuguano theory, but let's you do it first, and I'll...
All right. Ahuguano theory of the week. Oh, no. Here it comes.
Quick. To the batshit signal.
Mine. Portals.
It's not that.
Portals.
But that's not that crazy.
Portals. It plays into yours. It's the whole alien thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where the aliens are very purposefully doing this, whether it to be just trickery or something more purposeful, like what we were talking about with the, hey, that place needs some frogs, let's send some frogs.
Yeah.
It's just to me that no one has ever proven the up part. It's the thing I keep coming back to.
Right.
The Lluvia de Peces in Honduras, it happens every year for over 100 years. They know when, they know where.
They know about when.
They know the season. They know it comes with the thunderstorms. They know the area. There's got to be a scientific way you can go in there and approach it and find the up. They've been working on it for years. They still don't have the up.
Yeah.
I just feel like if we were going to be able to find it, we would have found it.
Yeah.
We would have seen it by now. With that event in particular, where you can lock it down. It's in May or June when the thunderstorms come. Every year it rains fish in this one little place, this one village.
Yeah.
Like, we know so much about weather patterns, wind patterns. We can track that stuff. We should know, what kind of fish are they? Where do they originate? Is it local? Is it not local? Like, I just feel like science should be able to figure it out.
Yeah, I agree. People don't want to go to Honduras and hang out for 2 months and wait.
Yeah. And then there's events like the one in Canada where it rained ants that are native to Africa. And there's the unknown worms raining in India, which apparently is just a whole new species of worm that just rained from the sky by the millions, that no one's ever seen these things before.
Yeah, it almost seems like that's more of a, they're just covering it up and they're not going to, they looked into this far more than they're actually letting us know, because they don't know, they're just shutting up about it. The Scully Muggles tend to get very quiet.
Yeah. So if you want me to get weird about it, it is totally aliens using portals to transport these things around for whatever purposes they may have. It might even be those guys living on the bottom of the ocean that are running the Tic Tacs that control the whole Earth as a spaceship kind of thing.
Right. The ones who put Godzilla and his friends.
There's a callback to episode 7 for you.
There you go. Mine's even crazier, unless you got to keep going.
I think my panspermia one was actually crazier than my actual portals one, which was my actual Ahuguano one. But, I'm allowed to be crazy however I want. Go ahead, Maz.
Mine's still crazier. So we talked about the tornado. That's the one that everybody comes to this mind that could be the only thing that's happening for reals. However, they kept using the word whirlwind. We keep coming across whirlwind.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until we went over to this today. Whirlwind, whirlwind, whirlwind. When you're doing it, you said it a number of times instead of tornado. Whirlwind is more magical. So what if the tornado? The tornado is, the yang. That's in our reality. The yin is the dark matter, whirlwind magic, the opposite of the the Einstein-Rosen bridge.
Right.
And that's the thing that's sucking through. I said this when we had the astrophysicist on, like certain things look like the muon, looks like the yin yang kind of thing. So maybe these things are just being sucked through magic through another dimension and deposited. And we see the tornado, but it's really a dark matter tornado attached to that. This could be a total atmospheric river thing. It doesn't have to be ground to tornado. It could be just something that happens in the air.
So that's more of like a thin spots sort of theory, where it's actually like passing between almost interdimensional.
Right.
Which would be portals. Interdimensional portals. We'll put them together.
Yes. We're talking about the same thing from different
The question is, what are those interdimensional white worms going to do to the environment in India?
Well,
are they going to help or hurt? Because that would give us some, what if they start eating all the plastic and they save the world?
Then that would be
like,
Gaia.
Wow.
That's a Gaia move.
Yeah.
If it's just going to be funny,
but what if they start eating all
video,
the people and they kill us all?
That's aliens, yeah.
Yeah. I guess we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. It's only been a year since those worms fell. Sometimes it takes a decade before you even know what impact.
I wonder who will ever get follow-up on those worms, and I'm going to guess no.
I'm guessing no.
Yeah. The smoking man is wheeling it down.
The only thing I can find on that is the original video, original articles of when it actually happened. No one, I couldn't find anything else about, hey, we figured out what those worms were.
Yeah.
No one's touching it. It went away. It just went away.
I don't think we're going to hear about it, I guess.
Yeah.
Sad.
And there we go again. And that's why we need a podcast.
Yep.
All right. Anywho, anything else before we get into the skeptics?
Nope.
Sir Richard Scully Muggle Skeptics Review.
You're full of crap, and that's the nicest thing that I can say.
Tornadoes.
So this is actually kind of a weird one for the skeptics, because this stuff actually happens. It's recorded. The Kentucky meat shower definitely happened. Those guys ate the meat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's video of the worms falling in India. Totally corroborated they were live worms. That guy was in the desert in Arizona with 50 people, a group of 50 people when the frogs rained down on him. Mm-hmm. It happens every year that fish rain in Honduras. People see it every year. So you can't say it didn't happen anymore.
But they can't. They block this stuff out. I read something even in the same chapter with Lauren Coleman that I sent you. The only thing I read about this I sent you, and it was the Lauren Coleman piece. And there's somewhere in there where he says Terry Gross was interviewed in NPR, and someone was talking about frog rains, and she couldn't even wrap her head around that this was a real thing. Yeah, I think they block it out. They don't want anything that doesn't fit into the Scully Muggle paradigm.
That's exactly right.
It's not recorded. It's just like, well, they'll figure it out. It's a water spout. Yeah,
exactly. You know how I can tell you're right? Because as soon as you bring up the subject, all they can talk about is the weather.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you go into it deeply...
That's all they have. Oh, there was a tornado somewhere.
And
Come on, dude.
I thought that until you made the point about the specific species, the whole variation.
The segregation, as Mr. Fort called it. The segregation of species.
Yeah, and this is Fortean, so this is older. We've known about this a long time. It's Pliny the Elder.
And it's something we touched on. Something else that my skeptic friend who came up with the atmospheric river-based concept said was, well, they're all the same size and weight, so they're falling in the same place.
That's what I said earlier, yeah.
Okay, so that would explain it if, like, the heavier fish fell over here and then the lighter frogs fell over here, and you could kind of, like, follow a line of the things that got pulled out.
That's not happening.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
And it still wouldn't be that individual of species. Like, if they're about the same size and weight, they're going to fall in the same place.
Yeah, the fish that are the size of the frogs would be landing in the same area.
Right. And then the point that Charles Fort drove home for us and is shown in the Japanese tadpole incidents, it keeps happening sometimes. There's a rain of frogs, and then 3 days, you know, and the Japanese ones, the most, like, well-recorded.
Yeah, it's in the movie The Host. And that was a big tadpole. It ate a lot of people.
It rained tadpoles over here, then it rained tadpoles over here, it rained tadpoles over here over the course of weeks in this one area of Japan. It just kept raining tadpoles.
Yeah.
So unless there was every day another whirlwind or whatever picking these things up in the same place and raining down the same
millions.
place.
And you're talking about
millions.
One twister over a pond is just not going to pick up millions of frogs.
It's not going to do it. Like, it doesn't explain it at all to me.
Yes.
The weather side is like the most.
I thought it was the most.
That's more ridiculous than the interdimensional portals.
But when we started this, I thought it was the most likely, and now at the end of this episode, I can see how it's absurd and shouldn't. It doesn't.
Yeah, I really just don't think it holds any weight. I really don't.
Yeah, well, not of heavy things.
Not the heavy stuff. Anyway, yeah. Okay, which brings us to our Scully Mulder believability scale.
They feel your methods. Your theories are
spooky. Do you think I'm spooky?
Wait, why am I Scully? If I can just go first really quick. Obviously, this is happening. 10. It's well documented everywhere. I have no idea why it's happening, so I don't know what to say for the other piece. Well,
I do have I broke it down because, again, it's definitely happening, so it's a 10 on believability that it's happening. So I did come up with a couple of specific questions for our believability scale. So first, 1 to 10, what are your thoughts on the weather causing these events?
You know, before I would have said that would have been the 7 or the 8, and now I'm more like a 2. I don't know how that would be.
I'm right there. I was going to say 2 there too. So really low on the weather. Second question, 1 to 10. Where are you on it being some sort of portal, teleportation, quantum, interdimensional thing?
It's hard for me to say. So I'm gonna punt on this one.
Is it higher than a 2?
I don't know. I mean,
because I'm putting that at like a 5.
No, I'm not arguing with you. It's hard for me to come out and give a number form on this.
Okay. All right, I'll go a little more abstract for you.
Okay.
Which is more likely, weather, portals?
Portal.
Thank you. That's all I was going for. The portal seems more likely than the weather.
Yeah.
Which makes it just way too weird and perfect for an MLT episode, I think.
There you go.
So I believe in us at 10.
Nice. You move the needle.
All right. And the pièce de résistance of any of our deep dive episodes, Wolfman Puck's Cryptid Culinary Corner.
Your entree, sir. Smells good.
I don't think it's going to be the piece de resistance for this one. I'm not sure about this.
It's going to be a piece of mystery meat is what it's going to be.
Wow. Scrapple.
So for this one, we actually kind of have a smorgasbord of sky meat to choose from. So I'm not going to limit you too much. You can use any of the weird grains we talked about as a formula to formulate your feast there. I'm going to make you go first, though.
Ooh. See, this is the only thing I could think of. Because it's not really meat. We don't know it's meat. It's impossible meatless blobs.
Oh, you're doing a vegetarian
Yeah, because I
entree.
don't like the idea of the meat anyway, because what might come back is disgusting. So let's hope it's plant-based.
How very progressive of you, Moz.
But we're going to use that Kentucky bourbon kind of barbecue sauce thing going, and probably, you know what I would do? Drink a whole bottle of Kentucky bourbon first, because you're going to want to make sure you're drunk before you eat anything from the sky.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, this is a cautionary tale. Those guys should not have brought out the Traeger on this particular day. Or, could you imagine reading this later? Remember that stuff we ate?
Baby lungs? What did you say?
Oh, it's so horrible.
And even if the most plain of explanations for it rings true, it was disgorged horse meat that came out of buzzards.
Yeah.
They ate it and they threw it back up.
And that's the good answer.
And that's the best that it could possibly be. And those guys ate it. Like, that's the best scenario.
Wow.
I guess the best scenario is someone just stuck some dynamite in a horse and blew it up and then they ate it.
Yeah.
But it, if it's probably regurgitated buzzard feast.
Yeah.
How's that for a Wolfman book?
I think you win. Honestly,
I haven't even gone yet.
No, I think you win for picking the worst one to talk about.
Oh yeah.
And we've talked about, cannibalism, because we've had to Wolfman puck some creatures that were humanoid.
Yeah.
So this one still brings it to another level.
Yeah, because purposeful cannibalism is one thing. Accidental cannibalism?
Yeah.
Eating baby lung? That's a whole different level, dude.
When Lycian snuck Zeus the
you ate my baby.
Person.
Oops.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
And it was most likely disgorged from a buzzard.
Yeah.
It was horse meat disgorged from buzzards.
Yeah.
They ate it. Mad Cujos. That's the most crazy batshit thing I've ever heard anybody do.
I think it changes what Mad Cujos means for me.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit, right?
Because we've given it to the person who we love and admire most of the time and help the most with the podcast.
I mean,
now we're giving it to dudes who just said, look at that.
I'm not saying they were big on brains, but they had some giant balls, those guys. Let me tell you. Excuse me. Pardon my language, everybody. This is a family program after all. All right. For my Wolfman pucks, I think the weirdest, creepiest part of this was the unknown species of live worms falling from the sky in India. Bio-rain is weird enough to begin with, but a wholly unknown species of something just raining down from the sky, that to me is just outright monstrous, you know what I'm saying? So for my entree, I will be feeding your soul with a song dedicated to the mysterious white worms. You ready?
Are you going to sing for us?
I am.
This is a first.
You ready?
I don't know.
Nobody likes me, everybody hates me, think I'll go eat worms. Big fat juicy ones, teensy weensy teensy ones, see how they wiggle and squirm.
Dang.
And for the beverage?
I think the believability scale's off the chart.
And for the beverage, gelatinous fungus.
The Noctac, what is that called?
The not nostoc.
The not stock.
No, but it's not nostoc. It's just a gelatinous fungus.
It's the steed of the ringwraiths, as we determined. Yeah.
The Nagul or whatever.
Nagwal. Yeah.
All right. Anywho, I'm going to wrap this up, Moz. You got anything to add or subvert before we go?
I do not.
All right. Well, once again, we thank you all very much for joining us here on the Monster Lore Tour podcast. Please take a moment to hit all those little happy fun buttons on whatever platform you're listening on. Like, follow, share, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. You can also join our Patreon for just $1 a month to get early access to all of our episodes and connected side trails. That is patreon.com/monsterloretour. We're going to go record the side trail for this one now, which will be another update actually on the progression of humans building a warp drive. It's an arc I've been on since episode 6. I kind of self-contained the episode. We're going to do a further follow-up on something I've been trailing along with all season. So any spacey nerds that have been following that with me come on along.
But don't worry about the arc, because when the water recedes, we're going to get out with all the animals.
There you go. We will be back next Tuesday with another full episode of Monster Lore Tour. So until then, have a good one, listener.
Monster Lore Tour Podcast.
Yikes.
They were cream colored.
It's a white worm with black curtains
near the station.
near the station.